I'm going to talk about something that I don't think we've talked about at all.
It's not McLaren and Ferrari, is it?
No, we've definitely talked about that. with something I feel like we haven't talked about them at all for the entire season, and that's Haas.
Oh, good God.
Finally found an excuse to get them as a talking point in the podcast.
I'm all ears.
I've wanted to do it. Just kind of feel sorry for them. And just got nothing to say about them other than how rubbish they are. But I just wanted to touch a little bit on Haas because they had a slightly more interesting weekend for Haas anyway. I thought it was interesting. Did you see Mazepin's interview after qualifying?
He said that it was one of the best cars he's driven. It was the best the car's been this year. And he was pretty upset because he thought he had the pace to stick with the Williams.
He was really visibly upset after qualifying. Like, proper choked up talking to, I think it must have been Lawrence Barretto, I think he was talking to. But he was very upset at the mistake that he made because he had his lap time deleted because he had a good pace, like you said, and he and the team thought that they had the pace to challenge Williams. And after he'd had his lap deleted, he just seemed to be pretty drained by it and to have one of the few chances to actually not be merely at the back of the grid. Obviously, this guy's been on the receiving end of a lot of criticism, much of it obviously justified. But he's also been subject to a lot of abuse as well, I'm sure. And calls for his removal as somebody who shouldn't be on the grid, whatever reason it is that people give for that. But this interview was, for me, a powerful reminder that this guy is still passionate human about racing.
Yeah.
Like, he cares about racing, and it's easy to throw rocks from the sidelines at this guy. But what would you do in this fella's shoes? Say, no thanks, Dad. I don't want a seat in F1 after an 8-year junior career. He still cares about racing, and he had a genuine chance today. And sadly, he made a mistake and couldn't make it happen. And I don't feel like gloating about that. I kind of genuinely feel a bit sorry for him. And it was kind of heartening to see Haas actually have a little bit of pace, even if it was a tiny little bit of pace. It didn't pay off when it came to the race proper, but they did in the early stages both leap the Williams cars. Mazepin got past his teammate. Mazepin was running P14 for a fair while, and they didn't get lapped until lap 25, I think, which is probably the longest it's taken them to be lapped all season. No, actually, Mazepin was lapped. I've got it here in my notes. Mazepin was lapped on lap 40.
Wow.
So that's Mick Schumacher was lapped first.
That's 2/3 of the Grand Prix.
That's right. I mean, that's impressive for them.
Yeah.
And in a short track as well.
Yes, exactly.
So, and Mick Schumacher, he lost his front wing. He had a little wobble as Raikkonen was going past him. He just lost control of his car and hit Raikkonen. It was his fault, really. Mazepin was kind of doing what he could in P40. And ultimately, the overall pace of the car, I think once the tyres started to go, that was the end of it. Like, the car just had nothing else to give past that point. So it didn't ultimately pay out for them, and they both ended up effectively at the back, and Mazepin was lapped twice, as was Mick Schumacher. So it didn't really pay off anywhere, but there was a very, very brief bit of a small light shaft through the clouds. And I must say that interview, I kind of felt a bit sorry for Mazepin because he actually had a chance to do something that wasn't just at the back of the grid, and he did blow it. But, the guy still cares about racing, so I do hope that Haas actually start to look a little bit more competitive next season.
Yeah, it must be hard coming into a team which have put no money into this year's car, developing it at all. They said from February testing, or from the reveal, which was just a photo, they said, that's it. This is the car we're racing from Bahrain all the way through to Dubai in December. Well, this is the car we're racing. There will be no developments. There will be no upgrades. This is
it. Just set up, isn't it?
It's one car, and they're putting all their money and all their resources into the 2022 car. So as a driver, when you know that the problems aren't going to get any better, and every other car in the grid is also progressing through that year because they have slightly more money or more resources to make their car even fractionally faster, it's a massive hit to the Haas team. And I've put my hands up, and it's so easy to take the mickey out of them and laugh at them being lapped time and time again. But actually, they have done a stellar job. Both Mick and Nikita getting into that car week in, week out, and putting in those performances and not giving up. And just taking that criticism on the chin and just driving because they have to. I think that's fair. That's fair play, and like it can't be
Yeah, I
easy,
can respect
especially when
that.
you're sat at the back of the grid being lapped time and time again. You know, social media can be a horrendous thing, and you know, sometimes I flick through the Haas F1 Twitter account and just the amount of abuse the admin gets, or the guy or girl behind the Twitter account, or the group bunch of people must be so fed up and must be so demoralizing when all they're doing is their best. I think they're doing a mega job. Obviously, he's done some controversial things off track. He's probably done some controversial things on track in previous seasons, but for the whole of it this year, you know, he's got in the way a couple of times with some people. But you know what? So's Lando Norris, and you know Hamilton's also got in the way of someone, and Bottas has got in the way of someone. So you know, everyone makes mistakes. Some
They're not
more than
there
others.
on the grid to be friends with each other.
Exactly.
They're competitors.
But I really hope for their sanity, I really hope that they can build a better car next year and just race against other cars. It doesn't matter if they're at the back of the grid, but they're still racing the Williams. At least they're racing the Williams and not just racing each other, because it must have been a long year for them, and fair play for them sticking it out.
We finally got to talk about Haas. I still think that's one of the best looking cars on the grid as well.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt.
That. Love the look of that Haas. I think it looks great. Proper retro. And I love all of the clothing and stuff they have as well that goes with it. I think the overall branding of it looks great, I must say.